Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Panel Pals, the comic book podcast for thinkers. We're your hosts, Diane Hitchings.
And Jack Stewartson.
How are you doing today, Jack?
I've been a busy bee this week, so it's nice to just sit and talk about comic books and forget the worries of the world.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, I feel that. Busy week. Not today, though. Today is a day off of work, so I slept in, did laundry, real adult human things.
Hell yeah. You ever defrosted a freezer?
Yes. Fun fact, my grandparents live on a farm, and there are 2 deep freezes at the farm full of, cow meat and stuff. And yes, every so often we defreeze both of them. Not at the same time, but usually in close relation to each other. So yes, I've definitely defrosted a freezer. Very fun.
Yeah.
Was that your fun real adult activities this week?
That was one of them, for sure.
Yeah, very fun. And now we get to talk about comics for an hour or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. What else would I want to spend my day doing? And so this week, we are speaking about the manga My Brother's Husband by Gengoroh Tagame. This manga is 28 chapters long. It was serialized from 2014 to 2017, originally published in 2 volumes. I own the first volume hardcover version that my sister got for me from Value Village for probably about $5. And I also have the mega volume, which I have in my hands right now. It is the whole series collected into one book. It is very wonderful and beautiful. And I'm going to be lazy. I am going to read the synopsis from the book cover itself to introduce us to the manga. Yaichi is a work-at-home suburban dad in contemporary Tokyo, formerly married to Natsuki, father of their young daughter Kana. Their lives suddenly change with the arrival at their doorstep of a hulking, affable Canadian named Mike Flanagan, who declares himself the widower of Yaichi's estranged gay twin, Ryoji. Mike is on a quest to explore Ryoji's past, and the family reluctantly but dutifully takes him in. What follows is an unprecedented and heartbreaking look at the state of a largely still closeted Japanese gay culture, how it's been affected by the West, and how the next generation can change the preconceptions about it and prejudices against it. End quote. So before I talk and say anything else, Jack, do you have any thoughts about the manga?
What a delightful little discovery you've made. Wow. I don't know. I don't know if you've made this discovery, Diane, but what a fun treat to read.
Yay. So did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was great.
Yay! Any just general thoughts about anything about it? Art style, writing, portrayals, just anything?
I might get into a little bit deeper during the discussion, but I thought it was a nice little nuanced look at a slice of life of a literal modern family living in Japan. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Nice. And we're going to talk about the manga a bit before we talk about the artist and author, but have you ever heard of the artist Gengoroh Tagame?
No, and I've got questions regarding him. I try not to look up too much about the book, just because I wanted to learn things while we were recording this. But I do have questions about his background and what I read about him.
Okay, because I was like, when I was suggesting this manga, I was like, do I want to tell Jack to look up nothing, or do I want to tell him to look up a little bit? And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let him do what he does. Knowing him, he'll look up a little bit on his own anyways. Later on, we'll get into talking about the artist, but I think for now we will start talking about the manga itself. Let's start talking about it formally. What did you think about the artwork?
I thought it's well drawn. I think it's interesting how all of his masculine characters, all of his male characters are drawn huge. They are the buffest men in all of Japan, not unlike Baki. I don't know. Yeah. It's got a lot of visual appeal. All the characters' faces are very readable. All the emotions are very readable. Nobody's it's cartoony without being, or I should say maybe it's comic booky without being cartoony. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I get that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny when you're like, oh, they're like the buffest guys. They're just like Baki. And I'm like, well, yes, they are the characters are muscular, but if you look at the whole pantheon of like buff characters in manga, like even like in martial arts manga, like the difference, there's a big difference. If you look at a Baki character and you look at a character from this, like these characters have no definition. You can't see you can't see every single sinew. You can't see muscles that don't exist. You can't see like literally that person doesn't have skin on top of their muscles. So like, I mean, maybe it's just because I spend so much of my time reading series specifically with buff men in it, but like to me these characters are drawn relatively quite realistically.
Even Yaichi, who is a single father who like sits on his ass all day, but he has a six-pack. You think that's realistic?
Okay, no, but like as far as like manga goes, like manga has I was reading like a series, like a book that I picked up from Value Village the other day, and there's a character in it who is like, oh no, I'm kind of flabby, and it's just a guy with the flattest stomach ever, and it's like, oh my god. So like that's how manga is.
I get what you're saying. Like these guys, like they have mass without it being like, you know, they're not Bruce Lee ripped or whatever, right? Like you can't see like, every single sinew. You're right.
But the clothes are relatively tight and you can see the definition of their pectorals. Yes, I have an idea onto why they are drawn like that. Personally, I like it. Obviously,
yeah, it's good.
I like manga with buff men, so I enjoy that. But yes, relatively realistic drawing as far as manga goes. I am a fan of this more like macho art style. A lot of manga, especially like back in like the early 2000s, was like very like pretty boy aesthetic, and yeah, I like that too, sure. But no, I like it when the characters have like physical mass to them and they actually feel a little more three-dimensional. They don't have the super pointy triangle chins, you know. I'm sure you've seen that.
These guys have noses and jaw lines. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and yeah, I like the kind of art. I wouldn't say that like I think the art is pretty. Like in general, I'm drawn to artwork that I think looks nice, or like my own personal opinion of what looks nice. We all have our own suggestive opinions about aesthetics, and I don't know exactly what it is, but something about the art in this manga isn't my favorite. I think sometimes maybe it feels a bit stiff, which makes sense. It's a lot less dynamic of a story than other works by Tagame, but like I don't dislike it. He's great at drawing the male figure, especially muscular manly men, and he's great at drawing in general, so I still like the art. It's not one of my favorite. I'm gonna be that person who says, I actually think I like the art in Baki more than I like the art here, which is gonna sound insane to anyone who's read recent Baki, but personal opinion. I still think it's a good looking manga.
This is very restrained. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know, he's using very limited lines, which I love that. I wish it's something I aspire to. I know I can never do that. I love to just scribble all over the freaking page. So like seeing this is like, wow, how does he do it? I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure some of it comes with time. He is an older artist, so has been drawing for a long time. He's refined down his works. Like, I mean, at the back of my volume, my special mega volume, it has like examples of the pencil line work for the series, and like even at just the pencil stage, it's like very limited amount of lines too. It's so clean, and it's like, wow, my pencil stage is literally unreadable, but this looks like it could be a finished series. Yeah, I think that's just a thing that comes with time. You'll get there. We'll get there. But I mean, yes, I also like just putting cross-hatching on everything, so this is, yes, I do admire the restrained nature of like the lines. I mean, it's still got textures, you know, it's still got the manga textures, it's still got like the
yeah, it's still using tones.
The half tones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Sometimes I think like it's got like gradients and stuff, and like I'm not the biggest fan of just like gradients as a background. Sometimes I feel it just makes like the panel look kind of empty, even though it's like literally put there to make the panel less empty. But that's just a personal opinion. Still good art.
That's also the medium too. Like manga, it's not unheard of for someone. First off, the focus is always on the character, right? Not the background so much. So it's not unheard of to like, well, I'll fill up this space with, we'll throw in a gradient or some zipatone or a couple action lines.
Yeah, for sure. In that sense, I'm going to transition to something that's relatively related, in my opinion, to the art, is the genre. You said when you were talking about it at the start, it was like a slice of life. And yes, I would classify this as like a slice of life series. Do you read much slice of life comics or just stuff in general?
Yeah, this is a newer development. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting up there in age, but this is a newer development. I would have never touched this when I was a kid, but as an adult and like as a late teenager into my 20s, now going into my 30s, it's like this is this is where all the good stuff is. Especially in manga. You don't think so?
No, I was just gonna say, I think I took physical damage here. You say late 20s, getting into 30s.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks getting old.
That physically pains me. I'm like, no, I am young still. Stop that. But no, yeah, I love slice of life. I don't know if part of it is because the comic I grew up reading the most was Archie comics, which is like literally just slice of life comedy. But nah, apparently I like to live on the extremes. I like crazy battle shonen and slice of life, my two favorite genres. Yeah, no, I spend a decent amount of time just reading slice of life. I don't know why I like it so much. Maybe I just think it's like a good way of like getting ideas across when it's not all bogged down with somebody powering up for the 100th time with the power of friendship.
You can get more, I'm going to say nuance a lot in this episode, so I apologize already to my readers or listeners, but you can get way more nuance and way more interpersonal, drama or introspection in the, slice of life drama rather than these broader themes that you get in superhero or action shonen manga.
Yes, nuance and introspection, my beloved, my favorite genres. What would you say on that is like the point of slice of life?
Like the whole genre in general?
Why would someone write slice of life, and why would someone read slice of life?
What's like the reverse of escapism? I don't know. I think you are looking to find empathy in some way. You know what I'm saying? Like you're trying to find the human experience shown back at you, maybe in a way that you hadn't considered before, or maybe in a way that like speaks to you personally. I think there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yes, I definitely agree. And my next point of thought has to do exactly with that feeling of finding empathy. On this week's edition of What Disparate Media is Diane going to compare the comic to? I'm actually going to compare it to something that's relatively similar. Have you ever read the manga series Yotsuba?
No. What is that? Who's that by? Let me look this up right now.
Just look up Yotsuba. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay, look it up.
Oh, yes, I've read this. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I'm going to compare this to Yotsuba this week. I read Yotsuba when I was pretty young. I'd say in elementary school. I got it, like some of the volumes from the local library. It was probably one of the first manga I've ever read, and like I read it from the library and then went on with life, and then literally 6 years later rediscovered manga. So I super love Yotsuba. It is a great series. It's adorable. It is a slice of life. And art-wise, I think one of the things that Yotsuba and this manga, My Brother's Husband, does really well in the slice of life genre is it has realistic scenery and backgrounds with simple character designs. So, like you said, the characters here, they're like comic-y but not cartoonish. They're drawn relatively simply. And then you compare that, like their clothing has more definition, and then like the backgrounds, like the house, like the onsen they go to, like the streets and stuff, it's rendered in a more realistic way than the characters' faces. In general, I'm not the sort of person who likes it when there's a disconnect between backgrounds and characters. I don't know if you've read much webtoons before.
They're all just kind of photographs that they put filters over.
Yeah, a lot of webtoons have this disconnect because it's like the backgrounds are a lot of times like photos or assets, and it's not drawn by the same hand as the artist. This will go back to like my whole rant of like how I like hand-lettered comics because you can feel the connection between the art and the letters because they're both rendered by the hand of the artist. So I usually am not a fan of when the backgrounds don't match the style of the characters, and I would say that both this series, My Brother's Husband, and Yotsuba are like that. But slice of life is the one genre where I don't mind this disconnect, and I actually think it helps with the point of the series. The realistic backgrounds make it easier to believe that this is a real space, upping the realism of the scenes. We don't abstract the location, placing it in our minds as reality. But in the end, this is a comic with fictional characters, and the simplified visual representation of the characters allow for two things. One, wider range of emotions on the characters' faces and bodies, allowing for a depth of emotions not allowed by realistic facial renderings. Like you said, the characters are simple and you can really feel like all of the emotions that they make. I love how comics can do this when they have less realistic human drawings. You can exaggerate the expression to communicate the intensity. And then the second thing about the less realistic representations of the characters is the more simple a character, the easier it is to abstract in the mind. A stick figure could be anyone. It could be the reader. The less realistic a character, the easier it is to not define them as one singular person. Of course, if a character is not realistic but they are very unique looking, it's harder for you to do that. For example, in Yotsuba, where the titular character is simple but unique with green hair and 4 pigtails, you're not her. You can't really pretend you are. She's a very unique, bombastic character.
She's unlike any real human being.
Exactly.
In some ways.
Mm-hmm. But her father is comparatively a very generic character. Because even though the series is about Yotsuba, the reader is more so placed in her father's position. Or that's my reading of it. To me, Yotsuba is a story about a single father and his experience raising a young daughter, more so than is strictly about her adventures. We see it from his eyes. And in My Brother's Husband, the characters are similarly relatively simple, especially compared to the more realistic rendering of the house, the town, the onsen, etc. And yes, Mike has a more unique design, especially to a Japanese audience. He's big, hairy, brown hair, light eyes from Canada. But we, the readers, are not placed in his position. We are placed in the position of Yaichi, a very generically designed character. Especially compared to some of Tagame's other characters. At the very least, most of his characters have a more interesting hairstyle or facial hair. But anyways, we are seeing the story through Yaichi's eyes in the guise of a character that's much easier to replace by ourselves. And so that's why I really like this type of art style in Slice of Life. It helps with that empathy thing that you were talking about. Thoughts?
Totally. Yeah. To speak to your point, I don't know if you were going to get into this, but the story obviously is told through Yaichi's perspective. Like, it's all his captions and like a first-person perspective, or first-person narration, I should say. We don't really ever get insight into what Mike is thinking about things unless he says it, right? Like, unless he actually says it. And there are chapters where we follow Mike, you know, going through the streets of Japan where, again, we don't get his insight of, oh, look at that cool building, or, oh, I'm wondering if I'm welcome here, right? Like, we don't get that. We just have to kind of follow along and presume based on the visual language being told to us.
Yeah, there's like a couple scenes where we get a little bit of narration from Mike, but it's only because, well, it's because Yaichi's isn't in those scenes. So we can't use him as our reader insert. We are in those scenes we're following Mike. Like when the time that Mike goes and meets the friend, whatever his name was, that he went to school with, yes. Yaichi and Ryoji. Yeah, we don't have Yaichi in that scene. So Mike has some of the internal monologue in that scene where he's like, wow, this is a great dinner, but like, why am I not having that much fun? Why doesn't this taste as good as when we're having food at home? Yeah, that kind of thing. And yeah, we are given this from the point of view of Yaichi. And in some ways, it's, one of my favorite things about art is the fact that it creates tension. And like, that's the point of art, or at least in my opinion. And I really feel that reading this book, because you're put in Yaichi's perspective, and he like thinks things and does things and says things sometimes that makes me really uncomfortable being in his position. I'm like, especially at the start, when his internalized homophobia is very apparent. It's like, oh my god, don't say that, don't think that, don't.
But yes, but speaking to the nuance though of the book is it's internalized. He's very pleasant and outgoing outwardly. Wow. For the most part. I think
the most part.
There's one point where a boundary is broken, and kind of understandably, he's a little upset by that, but
Yeah.
The rest of his homophobia or intolerance, it's all internal.
Mm-hmm.
But we also are able to see a legitimate growth on his through his internal monologue. It's not, you don't have to have a character, it's not like Futurama. You can't just have your characters say how they're feeling. That makes me angry. He's actually dynamic. He actually changes, and he doesn't have to say what the change is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yes, the wonderful nuance of something that's written by someone who is good at writing and has experience with the comic medium. Ah, so lovely. Yeah. I think, one of the points is the fact that it's all internal. It, like, internalizes homophobia. It's not out there. It's not like he's out there being like, wow, I hate the gays. No, it's all internalized, and I think that this is written by someone in Japan about Japanese culture, and compared to, like, in Canada, it's very different. Obviously, I can't say from a first-hand perspective. I am not from Japan, but, like, they're have, like, less outwardly showing of emotions, like you saw in this. It's, like, there's not in the culture to really hug people, and you'd be more polite, and so it makes sense that the homophobia that Yaiji has, it is internalized. It's not outward. It's just, like, below the surface.
From what I understand...
Yeah.
Again, this is an outsider's perspective, and only having briefly read into the gay culture in Japan or the cultural understanding of homosexuality or homosexual relationships, one could suggest that they are tolerant, but also, gay marriage is not legal there, or at least it wasn't when the book was being written, right? Like,
no, it's still not.
There's an understanding that gay relationships do happen. People are gay in Japan, obviously, but it's just not openly discussed usually.
Yeah, they don't talk about it. Yeah, it's very, like, under, like, the surface. And we see that with, like, for example, the friend that Yaiji and Ryoji went to school with, when Mike says when they go out and have dinner, he's like, oh, if I were, like, they're talking, having dinner, and they both know that the other one is gay, and then the friend is like, hey, let's go, like, let's check out some gay bars or whatever. So, like, at that point in time, comfortable with being gay. But then when Mike is like, hey, if I see you in the street sometime, can I call out to you? Like, being like, hey, can I say, like, hi? And then the friend is like, no. Because it's like, it's not a thing that we can just, like, be out there. And you can definitely see the difference between that in Japanese culture and with, like, North American culture. And Mike is from Canada. Yay, I love having books where the characters are Canadian. It's like, yay, we're represented. I mean, do you think there's a reason why they made Mike from Canada and not from America?
Well, for one thing, I'm not going to say that we're the most tolerant country on the planet, but we've had gay marriage legalized for way longer than the U.S. ever did. You can thank Daddy Pierre Trudeau for that one, folks. But yeah, we do kind of have a history of LGBTQ plus rights being kind of at the forefront of acceptance and tolerance, rather than, I don't know, somewhere like the U.S. and especially Japan, where gay marriage just isn't legal or recognized. Yeah,
and it's like in Japan, it's not like, I think I was doing a little bit of, like, reading. I think it's not like, it's not criminalized. It's not like against the rules in any way, and it hasn't really ever been. But it's just that, you can be gay, but, like, you can't get married or, like, let other people know about it.
Yeah, don't tell me about it.
Yeah, and from reading a lot of, like, other series, like Japanese manga with LGBTQ characters, you can feel that a lot. And, like, for me, sometimes I think, oh, is it just, like, these are written a little bit, like, in the past, so, like, the characters can't be so, like, outwardly open about their sexuality. But no, those series are quite recent and, like, still ongoing, and you just think that, like, well, compared in Canada, most places in Canada, where it's fine. A lot of I won't say most, but a lot of people are outwardly open about their sexuality and their gender expression. So it's interesting reading it, and sure, this is a series that's, like, 10 years old now, but me reading more recent series that are in the same vein, it's like, no, it's still a through line that exists in I would assume in Japanese culture because it's being represented in the mangas.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think also part of it also is because stuff is being translated when it's coming over here, and I'm going to use Sailor Moon as an example, a lot of gay characters probably got erased or got turned into jokes or what have you through translation. Mm-hmm. So again, it depends on a case-to-case basis, but I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we, talking about some of the writing, if I have one criticism of the book, I think, and I'm sure you will explain this when we get into the author's background, and I think I know what you're getting at. Early on, I'm thinking about like the first third, I feel like, and maybe it's not my place to criticize because again, I'm a straight white guy, I feel like there's like some queer baiting or some gay baiting in regards to Yaichi and Mike's relationship. Am I right about that? Maybe it's the translation I'm reading.
So I was gonna talk about this later, but I'll tell you about my experience reading this. So I read this chapter by chapter as it was coming out translated in English. So I didn't read the whole thing all at one time. It was chapter by chapter. And I've read other of Tagame's work, and I was like read a lot of other things in this genre, so I was reading it, and I was like, oh, twins, they look the same. Okay, that's a trope that happens relatively often. Thanks. And then there's that chapter where Mike comes home drunk, and he all but like tackles Yaichi to the ground, and I legitimately screamed. I felt fear. I was like, no. I read so much manga and so much of his other stuff. I'm like,
I know where this is going.
This is slice
I don't
of
like
life.
it.
Don't do it. There's a child in the house. Oh my god. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, okay, now I know what kind of series we have here. Yeah, when I started reading it, I didn't know it was just slice of life. So when that happened, I was like, and every time I reread it, I'm like, oh my god, I can still remember what I was thinking at the time. I was like, oh no, the genre is gonna change. But it didn't. So I think, it definitely has to do with like what this author usually writes and just the general genre. And even like near the farther into the book when like Mike is talking with that friend whose name I still can't remember. That guy is like, yeah, I had a crush on Ryoji when we were young. Hey, don't you feel kind of like weird? Like Yaichi looks exactly like him. Don't you think like, is it kind of weird living there? And then Mike's like, no. I mean, they look the same, but they're different.
Right. That's like, and that's part of what makes me like, it's not so much the subject matter that makes me angry. It's that I hate generally the trope of, oh, my sibling is dead, so I'm going to take their significant other as my own. Like, it drives me up the wall.
Oh,
so I'm glad it doesn't.
Yeah, guess how much I hate that as someone who is a twin.
Even as a single child, I think it's unrealistic to portray that.
No, I so often have a bone to pick with how twins are represented in any type of media. Do you think I want to read another series where it's just, oh, they look the same and they're kind of weird? And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. Twins have been depicted as weird for forever. And maybe twins are weird, but not that kind of weird. Like, we're not creepy. We just look the same. So, like, honestly, to me, I was like, oh, well, they're twins. That's the trope they're gonna use this time. So I was just resigned to it. But after reading the whole thing, I like how it's represented. Like, for the most part, just besides those little bits, it's just a story about, a guy and his twin who's now dead, and they look very much the same, and it's having to do with these things. And it's like, yeah, good. Yes, good twin representation. Yay, twin representation. That's good. I'm so excited. Yeah. That is definitely part of the story, and I think it's just, that's a trope that exists. Just like, if you read shonen, there's gonna be tropes that exist.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll use them correctly, or maybe they'll just throw in the power of friendship saves everyone again out of the blue, because that's how it goes. Yeah.
But again, it's only very early in the book, and it very quickly moves away from it. I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, me too. I don't know, maybe it was like, just like, oh, that is such a trope that I have to, when I'm writing it, I have to include just a little bit of, because like if I didn't, people would be like, huh, weird. Mentioned twins and didn't do anything weird about it? That doesn't make sense. That's not how twins are.
Yeah. I'm sure that's also probably how he might have sold the book initially, also maybe in the pitch. I'm not sure about that, but
yeah. No, I mean, like, I like the fact that they were chosen to be twins, because then it's easier in the series, because the two look the same, to convey some of those feelings. Like, there's sometimes in the series, in the book, where Yaichi is, like, talking to, like, his reflection or his shadow, and in some of those times, those are, like, visual representations of his brother. And that's it's like a nice little, shorthand that you can use when the characters are twins. So, and, you know, I like that. It's more interesting to show, like, you know, than just be like, yes, thinking about the dead guy. No, I can just talk to his shadow, which is like, it looks nice.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
very
really
cool.
Nice. It was a nice panel, yeah. Oh yeah, and I guess one other thing about the artwork. One of my favorite parts about the art is, like, there's that one, the part where Yaichi's like, oh yeah, after Mike comes home drunk, he's like talking about how he hadn't cried since his brother had died until that night, and then the last panel of that chapter is just like a picture of the night sky with the moon, and it's slightly like double focus, like how your eyes get when they're teary, and I'm just like,
oh, I never noticed that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, he's like, until tonight I hadn't shed a tear, and then yeah, the last panel is like half the page, and it's a picture of the moon and the stars, and it's kind of like, yeah, like the double exposure, kind of like how your eyes kind of get unfocused when you got tears in them. And I'm just like, it's very subtle, it's nuanced, it's such good storytelling. Gonna make me cry. Yeah, I've reread the book this morning, just to remember what was happening. I made myself cry twice while reading it this morning. So, yeah. Very emotional, love the nuance. Yes, great storytelling, even though they decide to be slightly weird about twins at times. So we talked a little bit about representation of queerness in the book, but another thing I think that's really nice about this series is the other family dynamics that it represents, or like it shows. Mainly like that divorce can have an amicable end, and then also the representation of a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah. Do you mind if we talk about Natsuki and Yaichi and Kana?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
First off, what a rug pull, what a mean subversion that they pull on us, the reader, when you expect his wife to be dead the whole time.
Yeah. No, I really like that, because it's like, yeah, you know, it's stereotypical, yes, the dead parent trope, which, I mean, I guess the story does do, because Yaichi and Ryoji's parents die on, like, the first page of the comic. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, gotcha. Because, yeah, you're like Mike, you're believing that, you see the picture, and you're like, I guess Hannah's mom is dead. That's so sad. And then you're like, psych, she's there. They're just divorced.
Yeah.
And I like, but they have, like, still a friendly relationship, which, like, I feel like in media you don't get that very often.
Not in Western media, especially, right? Like everyone, I don't know, everybody knows. You've all seen that movie where at the beginning of the movie, the guy's got a bitch wife, and then they break up, and then he ends up with a new girl at the end, and his wife that he left is, like, way worse off because they left. Like, this isn't that story, and it's kind of refreshing. No. Like,
yeah,
Natsuki and Yaichi are still friends. There might even still be love there, even if they're not, like, they'll never get married again, right?
No.
But
they can, like, they can still hang out, and they don't, like, hate each other's guts, and I'm like, good, because, like, yeah, divorce is a thing that happens, and, like, sometimes it's just, like, because that's what's better, and it just didn't work out. Like Yaichi says, he's like, yeah, it just didn't work out, and it's like,
which happens a lot, I imagine.
And it's like, wow, and there's so many, like, fiction and, like, series and manga and stuff that I read, and, like, divorce is always depicted as a negative. It's an obstacle. It's something to set up one of the parents as like an antagonist or something. And it's like, no, you know what's actually more, like, relatively realistic? That, like, both parents are just, like, people, and it just didn't work out. What's her name? I forget her name too. Natsuki, yeah. Like she says, at one point in time, her work is her lover. So, like, obviously, like, you can kind of get some of the context clues that maybe it didn't work because she was really focused on her job, and that's why, like, Yaichi has a more visible parent role is because she's busy working and he is more able to take care of their child.
And successful as a parent, too. That's the other thing, is like...
Yeah.
Obviously, like, there's a point made that, like, being a single parent is not easy and there will be trouble, but Yoichi's doing a pretty good job of raising Kana as, like, a regular, wholesome Japanese schoolgirl, right? Like...
Yeah. And like, it's not really, like, said explicitly, but, like, you could guess, you could, like, kind of assume that, like, Natsuki's, like, probably helping out financially somehow in Kana's upbringing. Yeah. Like, you just assume that, like, probably. And it's like, he does have some insecurities throughout the series if he's, like, for raising her as a single father. And he's also like, I don't really have a job, you know, I'm just a landlord.
He's a landlord, quote unquote, whatever that means.
Yeah. And he's like, living off of what his parents left him because, like, they own the apartment complex and now he has it to rent out to people. So he has, like, these kind of insecurities that's, like, that, like, in society, like, it makes sense because, like, that's, like, the role that's often pushed on the men and fathers that, you know, in media and in social media recently specifically, there's been like a sort of a radicalization of like, oh, men have to work and grind. They have to get up at 4 a.m. and make millions of dollars. They have to be the breadwinners so that their woman can stay at home and bake bread.
Dunk their head in ice water and shove banana peels in their eyeballs or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, sure, this manga is 10 years old at this point, but it still stands as like a healthy depiction of a less common gender role. And it's like, yes, good. We need more of that in media. And like he's like shown like in a relatively societally quote unquote feminine role. Like, you know, he's shown doing chores, wearing an apron, cooking, doing his daughter's hair.
He's a great cook, right? They make a point of showing that he's a good cook.
And these are all things that historically, socially are attributed to the female role of raising kids. And the way that it's depicted to us is that it's normal. And he's never like, and it's never like a hit to his manhood or anything. And I'm like, I just really appreciate that because so much of media just doesn't do that. So even in the parts of the story that aren't focused on the queer aspects, the other parts, I'm like, yay, these are great. I really appreciate the way that the dynamics are shown in this series.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then I guess to go off of the point of family dynamics and stuff, one of the main characters in this series is Kana, the child of Yoichi and Natsuki. She's in 3rd grade, so that's like, what, like 8 years old? 9, something like?
Yeah, 9, I would say. 9 going to 10, maybe?
Yeah. So what do you think, in general, of children characters in comics, or in media broadly?
In media broadly, it's so hard to get kids right without making them also annoying.
Yes.
I'm thinking about, so I've got a film studies background, and we used to talk about, I took a course on, it was movies in the 40s and 50s, and my professor, who was a very smart guy, made a point of saying, children actors really have only been good in the 2000s. All kids in movies before then are just so bad, so annoying. They talk way too much. They're too loud. They don't know how to act. And that's, I felt that way. Like, it's like a light bulb went off or something. It's like, oh, he's describing exactly how I feel. And like, same with comics, just because comics are a broad visual medium and they take their cues from stuff like film or novels, it's hard to get the nuances right of writing kids. I think Tagame does a great job of making Kana a realistic daughter, like a realistic young girl. Her obsession with Mike is like playful and charming and very cute without being obsessive or like, you know, annoying. She's not always this happy-go-lucky kid. She still has her own problems, right? She's very quick to being jealous or angry if something doesn't go her way, but that's shown without it being like I don't hate Kana for that. That's just like, oh, I get it. That's like how a kid acts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. In general, I hate children characters. They're so annoying. I don't know, maybe that's because, like, there's a lot of children characters in, like, shonen because, like, it's written for kids. And maybe I shouldn't be complaining about things for children, but I will, as a full-grown woman, complain about comics for 12-year-olds. But it's like, yeah, they're usually, like, annoying and, like, not even, like, sure, maybe they're cute, but, like, that doesn't make up for the fact that they're annoying and they talk too much, and I don't like kids anyways. But when you have a writer that is good at writing and has a reason, like a story reason for including a child, it's like, wow, it actually works. Because I think one of the most useful, like, putting kids in stories is very useful. Not to, like, be like, ah, yes, to use a child as an object in writing. But, like, I think it's, like, a very useful way to explore ideas. Like, kids are almost like an exposition help. Like, there's lots of concepts in the story that Yaichi has to explain to his daughter because she's a kid. And that could, for me, that helps with, like, as someone who is not Japanese, explaining to Kana the rules and just how generally things work in Japan, because she wouldn't know. She's, like, 9. It's like, oh, good, thank you for also explaining these things to me, someone who does not have an intimate knowledge of these things. But it's better than just doing it straight up exposition, where you put a text box that's like, ah, yes, gay marriage is not allowed in Japan, as opposed to in Canada. It's far more natural to just, like, have to explain to your child who's never interacted with these concepts before that, no, that's not allowed here, but I guess it's allowed in Canada. And also with that, having to explain these things to Kana, it also forces Yaichi to think about these things that he hasn't really had to explicitly confront before. He can't avoid topics like he could with other adult Japanese characters because Kana is a curious child and she doesn't have the same adherence to societal norms like politeness and having an inside voice.
Like, that lack of knowledge also, the way that is even shown is, like, kind of interesting. The way that information is sort of fed into Kana and the way that she's able to break things down. I'm thinking of at one point, so very early on, Kana learns that Mike is gay, that Mike is her uncle through Ryoji, who's her dad uncle. And so she's able to put together that, oh, Ryoji and Mike were married. But then a couple chapters later, she asks who the wife was in the relationship, like, where was the wife in the relationship?
Yeah.
And whereas an adult would be like, oh, well, the relationship is between two people, so, like, obviously there was none. You're kind of able to, like, parse. The information is parsed out in a way that a kid would, like, logically start to think these things through.
Exactly. And then also that point leads to, like, Yaichi thinking later that he's like, my brother married a man, and actually I was like Kana. I was wondering the same thing. But, like, he was wondering it from a slightly different perspective. And it forces him to confront his preconceived notions and his prejudices that never would have had to confront if Kana hadn't been like, hey, I gotta ask this question because to me it seems obvious. Like, wait, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like the difference between ignorance and, like, just general not knowing things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like,
or an innocent ignorance, I should say, maybe.
Yeah, the innocence and naivete of a child.
Naivete, that's better.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a very useful way of using a child character. And, like, also there's the fact that, like, it kind of, like, helps to show the absurdness of some of the society-held beliefs. Like, to Kana, she's like, why are two men allowed to get married elsewhere in the world but not in Japan? Like, huh?
Great question.
Yeah. And there's some other points in time, like, things are, like, happening, and she's like, I don't get it. And then it makes Yaichi think, like, hey, yeah, like, why does this not make sense? And then also the reader, you're like, yeah, that is weird. I don't understand why that happens either. And you're like, huh. So, congratulations to this manga for making a child character that is not only not annoying, but, like, thematically important and also just, like, really endearing.
Yeah, she's cute. She's a nice kid.
Yeah, she's great. And, like, like, even her, like, the other child characters.
I like her friends, too.
Yeah. And, like, sure, they fit into some of the stereotypes, like, slightly dumb boy, girl who's a little precocious. But, like, it helps because all those personalities bounce off of each other, and it helps them have, like, these conversations that, like, you know, help with the themes of the story. Like Kana's friend asks, like, hey, so, like, can two girls get married? And then Kana's like, huh, I don't know, I didn't ask about that. I'll have to ask about that next time. And it's like, yeah, it's a good way of, like, having these conversations because, like, the adult characters in the series wouldn't have these kind of conversations because, like, Yaichi is adhering to the societal norms of politeness or keeping things just in your mind and not making it out in the open. But the kids don't have that because they're still kids. It's great. Very useful for the stories. Yeah, and I'm like I very rarely have stories that writing children characters in it, just because, like, yes, they're kind of annoying. It doesn't fit the genre that I'm writing. They're also hard to write. The only time I really have kid characters is like in flashbacks, and it's sort of in this same kind of vein where it's like these child characters who still have that innocent naivete are such a good reflection of like the society they're in, and they help for you to see that absurdness of some of these societal norms that is just normal to an adult, but to children don't make sense because they haven't been indoctrinated into it. And I think that's like a very fun and useful storytelling device. Much better than just making annoying child character just to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, in your writing and stuff, you often or ever
I
have
avoid kids like the plague. Are you kidding
yes.
me? I'm not writing about children.
Yeah.
I've spent enough time with the kids to know that I don't want to have anything to do with that.
Yeah, yes, very fair. No. And it's like, also, sometimes kids are hard to draw.
Totally. You ever see that John Byrne baby?
No, what?
When he's drawing baby... never mind. I'll show you this off air.
Okay, yes, you'll have to tell me about this. But, like, yeah, no, kids are hard to draw, and it's like, I don't know, I spent so much of my life trying to figure out how to draw a human. Now you have to tell me I have to figure out how to draw a weird proportioned human with, like, bigger eyes. Yeah,
it's like an adult with a big head.
Yeah. Like, now. I mean, like, sure, you know, back in the day when you first start drawing, you're always drawing what you see in, like, well, for me, it's what I saw in anime, which was, you know, characters with huge heads. So I was like, yes, that's pretty much like a child. But nowadays, I'm like, no. I will draw big muscular men. Is there any other part of the story you'd like to talk about before I transition slightly and talk about the author?
I've got an anecdote.
Okay.
That relates to the story.
Yes.
So in the later third of the book, it's decided that in order to give Mike like an authentic Japanese experience, they go to an onsen. I think they go to a ryokan, which is like a hotel with an onsen in it.
Yeah.
When I was 14, I was very privileged. I got to experience a exchange where I went to Japan. My parents used to host Japanese exchange students we had a twin town in Japan, in Hokkaido, so the northern mountain.
Did you get to go to Hokkaido?
I got to go to Hokkaido for a week and a half. I spent time in Hokkaido, in Obihiro.
Fuck, you're so lucky. God, I want to go to Hokkaido so bad. Anyways.
Now, in order for me to get the authentic Japanese experience, my host family, my host brother, I guess you would call him, took me, and I was with another kid from my town. We rode our bikes and we went to an onsen. And it is really weird at first. It's a really weird experience. So I totally get Yaichi, who even as a, you know, Japanese national is like, this is weird. This is weird doing this. It's like, it is weird at first going to an onsen.
How is it weird? Tell me more, as someone who's never had the opportunity to, but hopefully will someday.
Again, as a straight white guy walking into a room full of naked Japanese guys... It is weird. You're given a little towel to like kind of hide your shame, but kind of not. But then after you kind of take a private shower, which is like, you know, that's like normal. And then once you're in the tub, it's like, oh, like you totally get like it's just so relaxed once you're in there. So I do sort of sympathize and empathize with Aichi and his experience in the onsen. Yeah, the only weirdness I felt afterwards was my host brother wanted me to try this like yogurt drink, and I was not big on dairy at the time. And he was like, "Oh, that sucks, Jack. Come on."
Yeah, it's like one of the things you have after you go to the onsen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how's that any different than the experience of going to a change room at a pool?
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like it's different. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Maybe you didn't play enough team sports growing up. But yeah. So
I don't know. When you're in the change room as a guy, you're getting out of there as soon as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's fair. Maybe that's the difference between like the female and male experience. But yes, now let's talk a little bit about the author, Gengoroh Tagame. I asked earlier, had you ever read or anything by this author or heard of him before?
All I know about Tagame is he had experience in like gay subculture magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something like I'm very curious about the magazine sort of culture, I guess you would call it, or that sort of type of publication in Japan, just because it is still alive, whereas magazines in North America, like we have like the big magazines, we have bookazines, which are like those a history of, you know, Peanuts or a history of James Bond, and it's just like listicle after listicle. Like we don't really have magazines anymore. So I'm curious about that. I am curious about, like, was he like a graphic designer before he was a cartoonist? Was he just strictly a cartoonist for magazines? What was his deal?
I am going to read you the other part of the intro part of the book that I read the synopsis, and now I'm going to read the bio of the artist for you. Gengoroh Tagame was born in 1964 and lives in Tokyo. After graduating from Tama University of Art, Tagame worked as an art director while writing manga and prose fiction, contributing illustrations for various magazines. In 1994, he co-founded the epochal G-Men magazine, and by 1996, he was working full-time as an openly gay artist. He is the author of dozens of graphic novels and stories which have been translated into English, French, Italian, and Korean. His artwork has been exhibited in galleries across Europe and America. My Brother's Husband marks his first all-ages title and earned him the Japan Media Arts Award for Outstanding Works of Manga from the Agency of Cultural Affairs. In 2018, it received the Eisner Award for Best U.S. Edition of International Material-Asia. End quote. So, I would say Tagame is an artist who is relatively niche, especially in the West. He has a few all-ages mangas, My Brother's Husband being the most well-known, but he also has a series called Our Colors, which I think I've also seen in chapters before, and series Fish and Water, which I think he started during COVID, because it references COVID a lot. And those two other, I'd say, accessible series he's done. Most of his work is 18-plus hardcore BDSM manga.
Nice.
Yeah. Which, personally, I think you can kind of see in his artwork in a couple parts of My Brother's Husband. I mean, personally, I can tell based on the way that he renders the male characters, with some specific panels or camera angles, and of course there's the two lovingly rendered shower scenes for our two male leads.
Yeah, there's a little bit of beefcake in there, for sure.
Maybe it just sticks out to me because I'm familiar with his work and this sort of work in general, I don't know. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely times in the series that, or in this book that you're like, yep. Like, did we need 2 pages of Mike having a shower after he was hung over? No. But, yes, it's there, and I think it's good.
It's something for the fellas, you know?
Yeah! And I will say, Tagame's work is one of my references for drawing body hair. He's so good at drawing body hair. Someday I can aspire to be that good at drawing body hair, but, like, I'll get there someday. Yeah. I would say that I haven't read all of his work, because that would be pretty hubristic of me to say. I don't know if all of it has been translated somehow into English, but I've read a lot of it. It's unique, I'd say. Are you familiar with for me, he sits in the similar vein as, like, are you familiar with the artist Tom of Finland?
I know of Tom of Finland. Like, I know what Tom of Finland looks like, yeah.
What he looks like, or what his art looks like?
Well, what his art looks like, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so, like, for me, like, I put these two artists in the similar vein of, like, drawing very, like, macho men, and, like, that's the main showing in their work.
You ever read Stuck Rubber Baby?
No, but I remember it getting talked about in class, and I tried finding it, but I couldn't find it.
That's another queer book, and it similar vibe, similar aesthetics, I think.
Similar aesthetics. Tagame is a great artist. He is so good at rendering the male form. Like I said earlier, a lot of his work is much more dynamic than this slice of life here. And I'm not super a fan of all of the stuff he's made because it's very extreme, you could say. But like, yeah, I wouldn't go look it up. For the general public, I would not suggest reading his non all ages work. But one of the main reasons I really like him, just like what he stands for and what he does and as an author, is that he has these 18 plus works that have got him great success, but he is also able to have these widely beloved all ages works as well. And it's like, yay, you can do both. And I think that's great. You don't have to just stick to one. You don't have to like live in fear of 18 plus works. No, you can still do that and be successful. And yeah, that's just really nice to see.
I agree. I think it's interesting that as an openly gay man, he puts the book in the perspective of a straight guy. Granted, he's living in a very straight culture, so it's probably not hard for him to, get into that mindset. But like, I do think it's interesting that he's writing from that perspective, from a different outset, to sort of explain his own. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think a lot of it is probably like, he's probably, like, a lot of the things that happen in this, like, obviously I can't say, I don't know him, but a lot of the things that happen in this series, they're quite realistic things that could happen, and they're probably things he has experienced in his life and witnessed in the people around him. So it's probably not too hard to, like, write a character like Yaichi, because he's probably known a lot of people like that. And the people that hopefully stopped having their internalized homophobia and became better people by the end of it. But I don't know. One can only hope. But yes, Tagame is a very important artist to me, and I really like his work. Yes, he sits up there in my inspiration for my art, up with like artists like Tom of Finland and Michelangelo and That's something I didn't think I'd hear today. Tom of Finland and Michelangelo in the same category of art.
Okay, well, like, I'm pretty sure Tagame has said somewhere that, like, one of his, the artists that are inspiration to him is Michelangelo, so, like, you know what? It fits.
I think he reproduces a Michelangelo, like Adam and Eve, in here.
No, that's Duel.
That's Duel.
A German printmaker. I do, because I have a fine arts background and took so many art history classes. No, yes, I love it when, like, comics and manga reference classic art like that. Yes, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I know that engraving, that's Duel. I also like that artist. I also really like engraving, yay. But yeah, no, I think there's nothing strange about putting Michelangelo's work and Tom of Finland's work in the same section.
I don't know if any other art history teacher would agree with you, but I'm on your side.
I think a lot would. They both draw extremely beefy men. Have you ever, not to take a tangent and talk about Michelangelo, because it's not like that's one of my favorite things to take a tangent on, but have you ever seen Michelangelo's work and like how beefy his men in and also how beefy his women are? Like,
yeah, didn't he only, like, he only had male models from what I understand. Isn't that correct?
That is true. But also, there were people at a time who were able to render women looking like women. Meanwhile, Michelangelo's out here with, like, statues of women looking like the buffest dudes ever with just deflated grapefruits on their chests.
I don't know, he had a type.
He did. And I will say, Michelangelo was one of my favorite artists, and I love his work, and I love how absolutely stacked Jesus is in the Last Judgment painting.
Hell
like,
yeah.
Oh my god, amazing. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Honestly, similar art style to Tagame's, because you got these guys. So beefy. Look at them. But, like, beefy in a more realistic way than, like, a series like Baki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, these people eat, for instance.
Yeah. And, like, also way more realistic than, like, Tom of Finland's guys. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
They got tiny waists and they got, like, big old butts, and yeah, it's like, that's way less realistic than Tagame and Michelangelo's work. But, yes. I love this series. Of all the manga and comics that I'll probably bring to this podcast, My Brother's Husband is probably, like, one of the ones that I would recommend people read the most. It's just very good work, and I think Tagame's work should be more well known in the Western world. Great art, great storytelling. Please be more normal about twins in comics, but other than that, no notes.
I should have looked this up. Who's the English publisher of these editions?
My volume is from Pantheon. I am not super familiar with them.
They're like a legit, they produce art, quote unquote, art comics. So that's
Oh, really?
That's good company to be in, I would say.
Nice. As far as I remember, this was written because Tagame was approached on the idea of writing an all ages work because he hadn't written any before. And then I think he said it was like, yeah, it was really nice and refreshing and good for my psyche and all that. And it was, yeah, enjoyable. And he's since written more all ages work since then, and at least one of which I've seen published in Canada. So probably, I would assume by the same publisher. I don't know. But yes, excellent. Good for him.
I was going to bring up, I thought it was interesting, all the, like, at least in the edition I read, all the interstitial, like, there'd be something about gay history or, like, gay iconography, sort of explaining. Like, for instance, they talk about the pink triangle, and I've always just associated that with, oh, that just means, lesbianism or whatever. But it gives it, like, an actual breakdown of, like, the history of it. I find that stuff kind of interesting as an outsider.
Oh, neat. Yeah, no, this print version doesn't have that. But that's super cool.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
Nice.
Can we talk about the Kazuya subplot? The teenager?
Yes.
Who comes out? I think
Yeah.
that's like...
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that.
What a sort of quiet dilemma to have kind of in the middle as a side plot of your... It's only 3 volumes, like it's not very big work.
No.
But what an interesting sort of thing to explore without totally resolving. You know what I mean? Like that, I feel like that was a brave story choice of being like, listen, obviously gay adults come from gay kids. That's just that's how the world works. It's okay to express yourself, but that doesn't mean that your life is going to be easy.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just comparing this to what I've read of Western comics, specifically Western superhero comics that have gay characters in them. But usually they're very positive portrayals, which is good. I think we should have that.
Yeah.
But I think that you need to have a mix of this stuff. This is life. Not everybody's going to grow up in a very caring, empathetic community that accepts you.
Yeah. And I think having that, like, subplot was very important. Like, the last sentence of the synopsis of the book on the volume itself says, it's like, what follows is an unprecedented and heartbreaking look at the state of a still largely closeted Japanese gay culture, how it's been affected by the West, and how the next generation can change the preconceptions about it and prejudices against it. And it's like, Mike is kind of like a personification of that, where it's like helping a gay character, like that kid, be able to come out to someone and see that there is, like, a way that you can live outwardly gay. And then also to kids like Hannah, who haven't even been introduced to the prejudices in society, but hopefully helping to, like, help her understand that those prejudices don't make sense, shouldn't exist, and hopefully move in a better way in the future. Like, the kids are the future, so having both of those type of kids grow up into adults that are better than the last generation, I think it's, like, yeah, very important and really good to show that. And you can hope that, like I would hope that if a straight kid read this book, they would come away from it, like, this with what Kanna learned. And if a gay kid read this book, they would come away thinking that, yeah, it's okay to be gay, and you can tell other people, and but all those types of kids would think that we can make the future better by being the sort of people that allow for this to be more open, specifically in Japanese society.
Yeah. I think, and building on that, I think I think it's good. I don't know if praxis is the right word, but to have Mike, who, even in Canada, being gay comes with a certain amount of not, what's the opposite of privilege?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of words right now, but yeah, it comes with its own, its own baggage and its own problems. Yeah. But
also being from a Western country and coming eastward also comes with its own privilege. So being able to, like, explain how things could be, I think that's a positive thing to do without like indoctrinating Western homogeny on these kids.
Yeah. Or, like, being super preachy about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's It's nice. Yeah. Yeah. It's never really said where Mike is from in Canada. I don't know if... I'm gonna assume he's from, like, Toronto.
I think they say he's from the East.
Okay, yeah, because I'm like, well, I doubt he's from, like, Alberta. Probably not.
Probably not.
I do think it's also funny that, like, at one point in time, Yaichi's like Kanna's like, oh, I have a Canadian uncle, and Yaichi's like, do you know where Canada is? And she's like, in America?
Yes, that was very funny.
Like, yeah, it's like, yes, classic. And also, like, they name drop Kraft Dinner at one point, and I'm like, yeah!
Yes, he makes Kraft Dinner for them, doesn't he?
But also, like, Kraft Dinner is a type of mac and cheese. If you're making mac and cheese from scratch, it's not Kraft Dinner, but, like, I'm not gonna be super nitpicky on the usage of the word Kraft Dinner. I'm just like, yay, we have a Canadian character. Woo! But I think relatively positive representation of a Canadian character in a series, because you don't often see a lot of, like, Western characters in manga, and especially not Canadian characters, though I will say it's kind of fun how so far two of the manga we've talked about have a prominent Canadian character in them, being this and Baki.
Yeah, I find it hilarious. There's no stereotypes either, which is, wow, what is a Canadian stereotype, I guess, but it is a nice portrayal.
I know, like, you don't often get, like, Canadian stereotypes in manga. Like, there's definitely American stereotypes all the time. Usually less than positive, and usually very, like, war-hungry and, like, loud. I can think of many series that are like that. But I'm like, yeah, no. Which I think is funny, because, like, I grew up... Okay, we're gonna go on a tangent about Canada, I guess. But did you ever watch the TV show Stormhawks? As a kid?
Yeah, I kind of remember Stormhawks, yeah.
Well, anyways, it's a Canadian, it's a show made in Canada, and there's a lot of, like, groups of characters that are, like, different types of, like, stereotypes, like, there's, like, British stereotypes, and there's also a group of characters that are Canadian stereotypes, and it's, like, one of the only pieces of media where I've ever seen Canadian stereotypes in, and it's made by Canadians, and they're, like, kind of like surf bros, except they're into, like, snowboarding, and they live in a snowy place, and they say, like, A all the time, and they're very, like, laid back and kind of, like, clumsy, and it's like, you know what? An endearing Canadian stereotype. Also really funny that was made by Canadians. But outside of that, I really can't think of any media that, like, had a stereotype of Canadians really portrayed, because it's like, oh, what are Canadians? I don't know, they're just, like, north of America. They were nice, I guess. I don't know. There's maybe... Well, even SCTV was, like, produced in Canada, so I was like, maybe Doug and Bob McKenzie, but even then, it's like, those are Canadians doing those jokes. Yeah. But, like, I think, like, in general, like, I don't know, I'm Canadian, I'm not the rest of the world, but I think the rest of the world usually sees Canada as, like, pretty unproblematic compared to the US, so when they have a character that's Canadian, like, to me, it makes sense that they made Mike Canadian instead of American, because, like, he just, from saying he's Canadian and not American, you get, like, at least a 10% greater chance of liking him.
Yes.
Because he's, like, he's nicer, and he's more friendly, and he's, like, a teddy bear. Yeah. Which, like, is, like, I think referenced multiple times in this series, which I think is funny. Because he's definitely the bear body type.
Right. They make a point of being like, again, in these interstitials, they, like, explain what a bear is in gay subcultures, which is like, okay.
Yeah. Which is, it's funny. It's referenced at least twice, because Kana gets a teddy bear and names it Mike, and they get the donuts that are shaped like bears, and I read that, like, I reread that recently, I'm like, haha, funny reference. I get it. But it's like, yeah, I know, when you make a character Canadian instead of American, you can make them, like, a nice, friendly, cuddly teddy bear instead of, like, being, like, weird, loud, pro-war guy. Yeah.
Speaking on Canada, when they're talking about Canadian sushi, and, like, Yaichi is, like, offended that we put tempura in our sushi is so funny.
Yeah. And I'm just like, well, first of all, I'm like, wow, I wonder how Tagame knows these things. But also I'm like, hey, don't be mean. It's good.
It's good.
It's not gross.
It's good.
It's not gross. Don't be mean.
I mean, when you go out to sushi, you have tempura anyway. It just makes sense to, you get peanut butter in your chocolate. It makes sense.
Yeah. And it's like, and yeah, we have like lots of types of curry. Like, yeah, for the most part, when I get curry out, it's usually Indian curry.
Yeah.
It's usually not Japanese curry. And I think it was funny. I think like Mike says like at one point like, oh, like I don't know, like that Indian curry might be too spicy for you, kinda. And I'm like, oh, that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
I like how it's spicy. It makes me feel something.
Also, not for nothing, Japanese curry, it can get pretty hot.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was kind of funny. But I'm like, yeah, it's interesting like reading this as a Canadian, because I presume most of the people that have read this series are Japanese, and so they are less familiar with a Canadian character. And then us reading this, we are far more familiar with Canada and Canadian people, but it's like the other way around. This is like a view into Japan, whereas Japanese people would be like, this is a view into Canada. Yeah.
It's a nice cultural exchange. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot too.
Yeah, and I'm like, there's nothing about, like, Mike's portrayal that is, like, illusion-shattering. Like, there's nothing about it. Because, like, yeah, he seems Canadian. Nothing about it makes no sense, except for maybe the craft dinner thing. But whatever. I won't be too picky about the usage of the word craft dinner. But yeah, no, it's nice. It's realistic. And I'm like, yay. I enjoy seeing Canada portrayed well in books and series. Because, yeah, Canada's pretty okay, I'd say. Could be a lot worse. It could be America.
Could be way worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be America. It could be Alberta.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. So, like, in general, I would like to see more Western people reading this series. I think I would love to see it more in libraries, and I think...
Could you put it in a school library, maybe?
Could you? I'd say. At least junior high.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think it would be great. I think it'd be good for, like, junior high and, like, high school students to read. And put it in with the rest of the queer comics that hopefully still exist in schools in Alberta.
No, not anymore. They're gone.
Okay, other provinces then. But yeah, like, I don't know, I've never really, like, talked to a person in real life in Canada who heard of Tagame's work, so yes. Spread the word. I hope there's more people that know him. I mean, there probably is. I don't talk to that many people. I'm an introvert. But yes, go out and read it. It's really good.
And what an Eisner. That's not nothing. That should be on lots of readers' radars, you would hope.
It should be. And, like, I mean, like, we took a comics program. That was more recently than this winning an Eisner. So I'm like, it's weird that, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, I'm like, weird that it never really got mentioned. But, like, obviously I have a very specific and niche taste in manga, so I'm not surprised we didn't talk about it in the one class that focused on manga history. But still, I think it would be good for people to learn about this. Yes, come on, university classes, make this part of your curriculum. Do it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and yeah, in general, I'd say, like, yeah, my last point would be, like, I think this is a great series. Tagame is a great example of an artist who does 18 plus work and all ages work, and he's been successful and acclaimed. Even if his stuff isn't everyone's taste, hell, there's a decent amount of his stuff that I don't really like, but it's proof that you can draw what you want and still be successful. And that makes me feel good. I like that.
I think that's something you can take away from this, regardless of your thoughts on comics or your sexuality or whatever. Yeah. Just keep working at it.
Yeah, I didn't even go into one of my tirades about how, like, I'm annoyed at the prudishness of comics and media in general, but we'll save that for another day. Yeah. Thanks for listening. You can find me, Diane, on Instagram at @1_little_gremlin.
You can find me, Jack, at panelpalspodcast.bsky.social on Bluesky and Pinksky.
If you'd like to follow the show, you can do so on Bluesky and Pinksky at panelpalspodcast.bsky.social. All of our links are in the show notes. If you like the show, please rate and review on your podcast provider of choice. Panel Pals is a Jack Stewardson, Diane Hitchings co-production with editing by Jack Stewardson. Our musical theme is found by Stemchamps.